Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very delighted and so honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, Amazon Music, Audible, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two very powerful conversations. First up, Dagmara Sitek will be here to celebrate her Courage Tales series. And later in the show, we meet disabilities advocate Mary Fashik. She's celebrating the adventures of Adeline and the back-to-school party. She's very, very open and sharing about her own experiences, her own disability. You don't want to miss this episode.
Come one, come all for the mind-bending, dungeon-stomping, time-shifting, dragon-slaying adventure of a lifetime.
What's happening?
Something bigger is happening here.
Yeah.
And someone else is calling these shots.
I'm your biggest fans. I don't want you dying in the third episode. Guardians of the Game is a real play Dungeons & Dragons podcast that's sure to excite and delight listeners of all ages.
How would you like your very own circus show right here?
Something good or something bad?
That is up to interpretation.
Whether you're a seasoned D&D veteran or looking for a wholesome but epic way to get into the game for the first time, Guardians of the Game has you covered. Let's get gaming, Guardians. Well, my work here is done. Guardians of the Game premieres on September 18th with new episodes every Wednesday.
I am really excited. We are here today to celebrate courage, and especially to celebrate the Courage Tales series written by our guest, Dagmara Sitek. Dagmara, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm so happy that you're having me here.
I'm delighted to have you on. Dagmara and I were talking a little about her home city, Montreal, before we started recording. It really is a lovely city.
Yes, indeed. You guys are welcome anytime.
Yes, and we felt quite welcomed in the city wherever we went in Quebec. It was really nice. And I think one of the things that helped was that I didn't assume that everybody spoke English. I would start every conversation by saying bonjour, and I forget how you say it now, but basically said, I'm sorry, I don't speak French. Can you help me? And everybody was like, no problem. Don't worry about it.
That's really wonderful. We are a bilingual really city here, even though most people like to speak French in the suburbs, but when you on the island, no problem. Yeah. So everyone can come from the United States.
Yes.
And communicate.
So we're here to celebrate a brand new book. It's called Cam Creates a Hero. It's the second book in the Courage Tales series.
That's right. Cam Creates a Hero is a brand new book from the Courage Tales series, and it continues the story of foster children from the first book in the Courage Tales series, but this time we focus on a different message. The message is don't give up on your dream, and it's a story about a young, sensitive boy called Cam, and he's a foster kid who wants to create a hero robot to help children who go through difficult times. So he is a very sensitive, compassionate boy who wants to help others.
You know, the foster system is something that's near and dear to my heart, and we celebrate everybody who is supporting foster kids, and that can be done in a number of ways. Not obviously becoming a foster parent, a foster family is a wonderful gift to a child that is looking for a family. But also there are ways, if you're not able to become a foster parent yourself, there are certainly ways that we can support kids in the foster care system. What's it like in Canada? I know here in the States, I think the number is 400,000 kids are in the foster care system in any day here in the States. What about in Canada? Is it similar?
Yeah, it is similar really in Canada. It's also a big problem. And the system is also very difficult. And it's difficult I think it's difficult in that sense that you cannot really help as much as you would like to. Because when I was searching for some alternatives to help children when you cannot be a foster parent, I found amazing organization in the United States that are searching for volunteers, and they were so open and you can enter freely. But in Canada, it's difficult. It's very bureaucratic. And I myself submitted to one of our organizations, Big Brother, Big Sister, that I recommend to everyone who would like to help foster children or children just in difficult situation. But the process to be involved took me 1 year, and there's just not many opportunities in smaller cities or if someone lives in the suburban area. So it's still, I find it difficult to help on the local level in the local communities. That's why also I'm originally from Poland. I'm Polish Canadian. I also help some Polish organization because it's easier for me being in Canada to help the Polish communities than Canadian. That's what really surprised me here.
Well, you know, it's on the one hand, it's great that the government is being careful and wanting to make sure the kids are safe. But on the other hand, it's so frustrating that there are these walls that prevent and discourage people from helping.
Absolutely. So that was my big frustrations. And that's also the reason when I started writing books, because I felt that I need to amplify my help, and I cannot help that much in field as I would like to. Maybe I will start why I started writing this book last year. It was as a tribute to an 8-year-old boy, Kamilek Mrozek from Poland, who was so severely abused by his stepfather that he died after, I believe, 35 days of fighting for his life in the hospital. So it was such a loud and tragic case. And there are so many institutions that failed these boys, failed to secure safety for a couple of years. So I created this Courage Tales series about resilient foster children to raise awareness and to help in my way from here when I'm based in Canada, because I just found it difficult to really help on the individual level.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a tragedy that that young man lost his life to abuse.
Yes.
How did you learn of that?
So that was a very loud case and the tragic part is also that we would never learn if one journalist in Poland wouldn't just raise it to our attention. And then media started writing about this. There was even a group on Facebook created to help the family, because boy was from a very underprivileged, poor family. So the group even funded his, the tomb and many things that were related to his passing away and his hospital stay. So it was just a very loud case that also contributed to changing some law in Poland to help to change family law that is more protective of children. Because biological families is not always the answer. We cannot support them in the all the time if they are not willing to change. At the end of the day, we really need to look at the needs of the children. And first thing should be to place them in a safe situation, safe placement. And this boy was under the protection of social welfare in Poland. For 3 years, they were not able to secure him a safe placement until he passed away. And there are many children like this. So this was just one very tragic case. And actually, after this, many people decided to do something about that. There was even a foundation that was created as a tribute to this boy called by his name, Kamilek Mrozek. And there are many people who want to do more, who wants to help on the individual level. It's just very tragic that you are really limited by the system. And yes, you cannot help as much as you would like to.
Sure. Yeah. Very tragic. Well, tell us a little bit about Cam Creates a Hero. Tell us about this story, please.
Yes. So Cam Creates a Hero is as I said, second book, second installment in the Courage Tales series. And again, the name also Cam is inspired by the boy who passed away in Poland, because his name was Kamilek. But the story is not as tragic, and it's not that as depressing and what happened in Poland last year, because my goal is to show children that there are issues in life and challenges that we need to overcome, but I also offer comfort and help. So the story is about the young boy in foster care who saw this terrible news on the TV. 8-year-old girl was abused by her stepmother so severely that she ended up in the hospital, and he felt a lot of compassion. He himself is a foster boy, so he went through suffering. He understands the pain. So he wants to do everything that he can to ease the pain of suffering children. So he came up with this idea to create a robot hero who will be a protector. And I show the entire journey of how he's trying to make this dream come true. And that he will be failing multiple times until he achieved this remarkable goal. But I also want to show not just the story of resilience, but also the motivation behind that. Because there are many books about resilience for kids. There is a giraffe that wants to dance. There is the train who wants to go over the mountain, but we don't really see the motivation behind our dream or our action. So I really wanted to show that in case of Cam, he's creating this hero because he wants to help children. His motivation is very heartfelt. It's coming from his heart. It's the compassion. And this is what pushing him forward to overcome all the difficult situation that he will encounter in his journey of creating this robot. So he will learn about friendship. He will learn about resilience. He will learn about how creatively you can find solutions to your problems or your challenges with your friends, with your family, with your foster siblings, etc.
Yeah. You know, you were saying that this was inspired by Cam from Poland's story.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways, it was kind of inspired by your story in terms of, you know, all the resistance you've experienced.
Yes. Yeah.
Trying to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got it really right. You noticed that. So I think that these books also allow me to make sense from the situation that happen in life. Sometimes get very frustrated that you cannot help as much as you want. So I definitely find myself in these characters as well.
That's something I think, would be a very important conversation to have with our kids, and that, yeah, we want to help. We see inequities, we see tragedy, we see suffering, and we want to help and relieve that. And there's roadblocks. There are people who get in our way, and some of the roadblocks are there because they come from a place of goodwill, and you know, hopefully it's like, well, we have to protect these kids. We have to be very, very, very selective. But also, there's some of the roadblocks we run into are put there because people are not kind and not acting in the right way. And I think if we can encourage, help our kids understand that as we're working to create, in the words of our founding fathers here in the United States, a more perfect union, we're going to run into roadblocks, but we can't let that stop us. We have to be resilient and we have to keep on going.
Absolutely. That's the main message. That's why I think there's so many like growth mindset lessons for children in these books, but I decided that I cannot make it sad or too depressing, even though the situation make you sometimes really frustrated or upset. That's why I also put a lot of emphasis on making it very entertaining, but looking beautifully visually for children. So they find it motivating, inspiring, and really just beautiful. So that's why also one reason here I work with a very young illustrator, Frank Law from Denmark. He's just 20, he just turned 22, but we work on this book when he was 21 years old. So he's literally 10 years older than my target group, because it's between 6 to 12 years old. So the way he created this illustration it's make book so alive, so modern. So I just really wanted to put a lot of pressure on the artistic aspect of the book. So even though there are difficult feelings, difficult situation in this book, because these books really provoke a lot of self-reflection in children. When my kids were reading this book, they had a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. But so I didn't want to overwhelm them with the topic, because there is social welfare, there is foster care, there is a little bit about abuse, neglect, difficult feelings, failures. So I wanted also balance that with very beautiful art and this hope at the end and some problem solving ideas for kids to keep the balance.
You know, as you're talking, I've presented educational magic shows for 35 years at schools, and anytime I had an illusion I wanted to add to the show that might be kind of edgy, I would always sit down and talk to a principal, teachers. Hey, this is what's going to happen. Do you think your kids can handle it? And we'd make a decision as to whether or not I'd present it. There was this one situation at a school where we went through that process. I presented the illusion. The kids seemed to love it. But the principal who had approved it beforehand afterwards said, that was horrendous. You shouldn't have done that. You should make, kids should never be made to feel scared. And I think that made kids feel scared. You should create art that's like Disney. Why don't you go see The Lion King? And I thought, my goodness, I felt terrible that I might have scared some kids. And I went to see The Lion King, and the dad is killed in the first 5 minutes of the show. I'm like, where's this? So, you know, if there's a parent out there thinking, oh man, I don't want my kids thinking that there's sadness and evil in the world. Well, there's a company down in Florida that's been doing it for a long time, and kids know that there's sadness in the world because kids experience it. The issue is that we don't often talk to our kids about it.
I agree. And I think that's the part of the problem, that we are putting our children in the bubble, and then when they need to go to the world, they are overwhelmed with the hostility, with unfriendly people, with all the emotions that they had not chance to learn at home. And I really think that we need to let kids explore, wrestle with difficult feelings, with difficult choices, and live with consequences.
Yeah.
They need to really live with the consequences. That's why my book also, I think, was very important. I offer the self-reflections. I consulted my books with foster families because I wanted to do it right. So I wanted to I didn't want to scare children. I think I did not. I saw the feedback, but I wanted to make it without any triggers. I wanted to have a sensitive approach to the topic because it's a difficult topic, but I also didn't want to make it unrealistic, right? So I want to keep the authenticity. Just the fact that young children don't know much about foster care. If you ask children, they will tell you oh, because parents pass away, that's why children need to go to a different family. But that's not the case in most of the cases, right? In most of the cases, as difficult and tragic it sounds, parents cannot care for children. They are not able to do it for many different reasons, sometimes very tragic reasons. But the children need to know that life is not as simple, that the life is just complicated. So I would rather show them the most difficult truth than sugarcoating. And I just try to offer some solutions and hope at the end. And something that they can learn about resilience, because this time will come when they have to struggle in life. It's better for them to have these thoughts earlier than later.
Yeah. I agree. We've I mentioned here on the podcast, when I was growing up, we never talked about somebody being in the hospital or it was like, oh, they're in the hospital. What's wrong? Never mind. And you know, I don't think I attended a funeral until I was 16 years old. With my kids, we were very open with our kids, and you know, our kids attended funerals at whatever age they were when someone passed away. I think it's really important, again, not to scare kids, but to just help kids understand that life can be wonderful, but life is complicated and also can be sad, and we need to be there to support each other and to help lift each other up.
Yeah. And I think they also are really happier when they know that. I can tell you my perspective as a Polish Canadian. I'm from Poland, I'm from Eastern Europe. There is a war in Ukraine, and my experiences are the typical experience of my grandparents and parents, Second World War, then communism. So I think when you go from this and you see the safe world and different aspect of life in different countries, you are very grateful for what you have because you know how bad it can get. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very important to know what can happen in the world and accept that, and in a sense accept that you acknowledge that. You can do something about that and improve it, but you need to acknowledge that there is something like war, like death, like neglect, like abuse, and what we can possibly do about that. It's better rather than living in the bubbles and then something hits you and you don't know what to do when this hits you. So I love this quote from Maya Angelou I live by: prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? We need to know about the worst to prepare for it, hope for the best, but don't be surprised by anything in between. So, which means that you really know there is hope and there are good things that can happen, but without being grateful for you already have, because you know how bad it can get, you can really appreciate what you already have. And I think this is also the part of the journey, and that's why I chose foster children to be characters in my book, because they know the pain, they know the suffering. They also can be very grateful if they see the kindness in people, because they really see kindness. It's not a given thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not a default, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this is really, really important. It gives families an opportunity to talk about some very difficult subjects that, quite frankly, we need to talk about. And so I'm really happy that you've created this series. So the first book in the series was Loris Opens His Heart.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. So the message in this first book, Loris Opens Up His Heart, is to overcome your fears. There's a young boy, Loris, who comes to the new foster home. He had very bad experience. His parents passed away, and then he was in an abusive household with his stepfather. So now he's going to an amazing, stable, and safe foster home, but he doesn't believe how lucky he is. So he needs to he needs to trust people again. He needs to learn how to build connections and relationship. And it's very difficult because he always had this, I give this black hoodie on his face. He's always clad in this dark hoodie as a symbol of lack of trust and just being very closed and introverted because of these bad experiences. But the moment he overcome his fears, which is the main message, overcome your fears, kids, face your fears and move forward with courage. The moment this happens for him, he's able to transform, forge a good relationship with his new family and be a hero, basically, be a new person.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And there's a third book coming out. Is it next year?
The third book will be in October this year as well. This is a consecutive release. Cam in September, and in October, Beefy goes from bully to buddy. This is the third book in the Courage Tales series, and the main message here is about second chances and redemption and the power of forgiveness. This is a story of the biggest school bully, Beefy, who is not a foster kid, but he's friend with foster kids. And he is in a very different situation because he has very neglectful parents who are emotionally unavailable. So he's actually very rich and very smart. It's just he doesn't have love at his home. So he has a lot of anger management issues, and he's the biggest school bully because of this neglect, this emotional neglect that he had at his home. So we see as he transforms into a friend, and during these adventures, we will see how he will just change to a completely different person. There will be a lot of fun in this book because his parents will be trapped in the computer games. There will be a revengeful goblin who will be trying to steal these parents to give them a lesson to not neglect his son. So there will be a lot of very unpredictable twists and turns because I really wanted to show this transformation and change through adventure, through action, not through just saying that. So the storytelling is very unpredictable here, but in the end, it is about second chances, forgiveness, and redemption.
And are you planning more books beyond Beefy?
Absolutely. I will be working on my fourth book by the end of this year. It will be a very exceptional book because this time I will change it to female perspective. Oh. So the first three books, Lori's, Cam, and Beefy, were about a male perspective, a boy's perspective with foster care and in foster care. But Inaya Finds Her Mom will be a book about a foster girl. So it will be a very different feeling, very different angle. And she will be searching for her birth mom through the book. Very
powerful. I think that this is an important series, and I think it can, like I said, I think it can start lots of really, really powerful conversations. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Cam Creates a Hero, the Courage Tales series, and also more about you.
Thank you. So the book will be available on actually across the internet, but mostly on Amazon. It's available in the Barnes and Noble store. And all the details are on my website, www.couragetales.com, just like my series, Courage Tales. And I'm also on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at Courage Tales. So all the informations are there. And yes, and I hope you can visit my social media and engage and talk to me and comment and just give me your feedback about my books. I'm very happy always to read and improve, especially now when I'm working on my fourth book.
Awesome. We've had a really great time speaking to the author of Cam Creates a Hero. It's part of the Courage Tales series, and our guest has been the author, Dagmara Sitek. Dagmara, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from the great state of Georgia. Our guest is here to celebrate her new chapter book. It's called Adventurous Adeline and the Back to School Party. Please welcome to the show Hall of Famer Mary Fashik. Hey, Mary, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Delighted to have you on. As I understand it, I'm not going to guess. Tell us who Adventurous Adeline is and all about this great book.
So, Adventurous Adeline. Adeline is just your run-of-the-mill kid, but maybe not. She likes to go on adventures. She is a wheelchair user, and she is figuring out the world. She is trying to figure out where she fits in this world, but also she wants to go on adventures. She likes to get in a little bit of trouble every now and then, but not too much. Not too bad. Like I said, she's just a run-of-the-mill kid who likes to just go out and have adventures and do things.
So, Adeline, I am guessing one of the things we hope to do with this book is to let kids know that people like Adeline who use wheelchairs and have different types of challenges are just like every other kid. They can be great friends.
Exactly. We are, but we're not, right? So, like, growing up, it was like, I had my friends, but then it was different for me, but I want kids, both disabled and non-disabled kids, to understand that disabled is not a bad word, and being disabled is not a bad thing, but we can't look past Adeline's disability and the barriers that she faces. And I think there's one thing that society tends to do is sugarcoat disability, and that's not what we're trying to do with this book. We're trying to show that disability is beautiful.
Well, I certainly have had many beautiful friends who had different challenges and disabilities in my life. In fact, I just had to say goodbye to one a couple of months back. I met her when she was 10 years old. I was working in a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities. And this young woman at 10 realized that I liked a teacher, and somehow was instrumental in me meeting that teacher, and that teacher became my beautiful wife. And at the time, the time was all the doctors and the experts said that Jennifer, maybe if she was lucky, might live to be 18. And she, as I said, she just passed a couple of months ago at the age of 45. She had a wonderful life, beautiful family, and I know that my life was made much better knowing Jennifer and knowing the other kids in that program.
And, I think everyone, disabled or not, we all have that person, right? Like, that makes a difference in our lives. And what I'm hoping is through the pages of this book, Adeline will make a difference in both children's and adults' life. Because growing up, I did not have this sort of representation in books. And I can't help but wonder what younger Mary would have thought to see a character like Adeline in books.
That is something we've talked a lot about, the beauty of books being mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And of course, as you said, the fact that a book can be a mirror, and if you had had a chance to see yourself positively portrayed in the pages of a book would have been wonderful. I'm a big advocate of celebrating the fact that books can be windows and allowing kids to look in and see the humanity of somebody who may have a different language, may have a different skin color, and may have to do things differently.
And that's the beauty of this book, right? It's not only about that Adeline is disabled, but Adeline is a character of color. And as myself, a disabled queer woman of color, it was so important to represent all of those identities, all of those intersections, because I didn't realize growing up that, there were other brown disabled kids. And I think about, again, what impact that would have had on me growing up. So I want disabled kids, Black disabled children, children of color, all disabled children to identify in some way, and non-disabled children with Adeline and with her best friend Maya as well.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned the fact that you are a Hall of Famer. You were inducted into the Susan M. Daniels Disability Mentoring Hall of Fame. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization?
Yes, Susan M. Daniels did a lot of mentoring, and this honor, it honors individuals with disabilities to mentor others and advocate for others in their community. And I was nominated by a peer of mine to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I was very fortunate enough to be selected to be inducted. I do a lot of advocacy work, and through my advocacy work is why I was inducted into this Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Mary, I was mentioning my friend Jennifer, who I first met back in the 80s. Back in 1989, I was hired to work at her school, and my job was to get Jennifer and the other kids out into the community, giving them opportunities to develop friendships with quote-unquote typical kids. And I know, well, I don't know. I think the school hired me. It was a school that was run by a hospital. I think they hired me because we were just starting to hear the word inclusion. This is before the Americans with Disability Act was passed. This idea that kids with disabilities could take up space in typical places was brand new. And I had the feeling that the school felt threatened by this. So they hired me to lead this program because I didn't know what I was doing. And they thought for sure it would fail and justify them staying in business. I was blown away by the fact that every community group that I approached said yes. The kids that the typical kids that we had participate in the different activities, they were wonderful. When we made this, we made a video called Meltdown, The Walls That Separate, and had a very diverse cast before it was cool to do that, of all different races and genders and ability levels and orientations. I look back now and I'm like, oh, wow, this didn't exist back then. The only people that I heard no from when I was, whether it was putting together the video or asking if my kids can come to this space, the only people I heard no from were people with disabilities. And the reasoning that they all told me was, well, I'm blind or I'm in a wheelchair, but I can think, I'm looking at your kids and they're 10, 12, 18 years old. They can't do anything for themselves. They're so, severely developmentally delayed. I don't want people thinking that that's me. Does that still exist? Does that attitude still exist?
It's so funny that you mentioned this because I was just talking to my best friend about this. My best friend said, when I met you, you didn't want anything to do with other disabled people. And I will tell you, I also grew up in the 80s, right? I am that unique generation that was almost 13 years old prior to the Americans with Disabilities Act. I was about 13 when it got signed into law. So I remember life pre-ADA and post-ADA. And there are not a lot of advocates in the disability space who are old enough to remember that. A lot of them were born after 1990. Nothing wrong with that, but my generation is very unique, right? And we're often forgotten about. But I will tell you how that has affected the panorama. Is that growing up, I was told, Mary, you have to do better than the non-disabled kids in your class just to be taken as seriously as them. So what that did was that made me internalize a lot of ableism. Ableism is discrimination against disabled individuals by society, government, individuals. And I internalized that. And so many of us do as children, as adults, because the issue is society cannot distinguish disabilities. So we are lumped into one big group. Our individual disabilities are not honored or recognized. So what ends up happening is we internalize that and we say, I don't want to be lumped into that group with them. So I will say up until, I don't know, less than 10 years ago, I felt that way too. And it wasn't until I started to understand that society did not want me to identify as disabled. Once I understood that, and I saw how angry people got when I used the word disabled, I realized it was not me, it was them, and that there is nothing wrong with saying disabled. And I now am a youth advocate in the disability space, and I understand that internalizing that ableism and projecting it onto other disabled individuals is absolutely wrong. And yes, it still happens every single day.
You know, as you were speaking, you reminded me, my beautiful wife that I mentioned earlier, her family's originally from Puerto Rico. And before I got to know her and become deeply enmeshed in her culture, I kind of looked and I looked at the group like, Spanish, she's a Spanish person. And there was this big tent. And everybody who spoke Spanish was from Latin America. They were all in the same tent, and they all had the same cultures. And boy, was I wrong. And I think we do that with a lot of folks. I know people talk about Asians, and they think, oh, everybody who is Asian is same cultures, and which in reality is there's so many different cultures, so many different languages, so many different customs. Do you think that it's we do that just because we don't take the time to really get to know people? Either we're too busy or we're not curious enough about other people.
I think we live in a very self-centered, self-absorbed society where we only focus on ourselves. And, you know, you're right, like, people think, oh, they're Spanish. And the running joke in our house is when someone on TV says, oh, they're Spanish, we say, oh, are they from Spain? Because the only Spanish people are the ones from Spain. Mm-hmm. You're identifying a language with an ethnicity, and that's not the case. And as you were talking about, like, Asian culture, well, I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. Lebanon is in Western Asia, so I am Asian. But people don't take the time to understand or recognize. I think if we took 5 minutes to educate ourselves on you know, somebody's culture or language or anything about them, that this, you know, our society would come a long way. Mm-hmm. I'm not pretending to say that it would solve every problem. Absolutely not. But would help? Definitely.
Yeah. What is your dream for this book? I know there are different authors, and they write books for different reasons, and they have different dreams. Some folks hope that their children's books become an animated series or a movie. What's your biggest dream for Adventurous Adeline?
My main dream was for this book to end up in hands of non-disabled and disabled children all around the world. I want everyone to see this representation, to feel represented. I want parents to feel like this is a book that they can give to their children, they can give to anyone, for teachers to use it as an educational tool. My secondary, more selfish dream is for this to become an animated series. Imagine seeing a disabled character in an animated series. I think that would be wonderful. And Adeline is so adventurous, and like part of the reason why I wrote the book the way I wrote the book is because this is how I wish I could have been at that age. Going up and down ramps at a state park at full speed, that would have been my dream. That is still my dream at 47 years old to do that.
Yeah. Well, the people who listen to the podcast know that I had an injury last year, and I was in a wheelchair after I got out of the hospital for a few months, and I was really my eyes were really opened up that even the places that are quote unquote accessible, they ain't all that accessible. Trying to wheel myself down the street, and the sidewalks, little bumps and everything. So I said, well, I'll go out into the street. And I didn't realize that every street has a pitch. So I kept on going into the curb, and it was it was a challenge.
Can I tell you why that is? Because the American with Disabilities Act is the bare minimum. And we have not come further than 1990, or should I say 1995 when they started to put everything in place. The ADA was signed in 1990, but things had to be in place by 94, 95. So we'll give them that 4 or 5 year grace. We have not come past that. The ADA is the bare minimum. Accessibility is not a one-size-fits-all thing. And until we get lawmakers in society and local governments to understand that, we are not going to move past 94, 95.
Well, we definitely should be moving past that point. And I really, my dream is that in my lifetime, I will see us move way forward. Mary, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Adventurous Adeline and the back to school party, and also find out more about you, because you are a pretty fascinating person.
Thank you so much. So you can go to adventurousadeline.com and you can find out all about Adeline and what she does and what she likes to do. And I will say this without giving away any book spoilers. Is the biggest lesson in that book is that Adeline learns that it is not her job to solve inaccessibility issues. And I think that is something that all of us, children, adults, this world was not made for us, but that does not mean it is up to us to make it adaptable as disabled people. We do, but there are others around us who should be making sure that this world is accessible. And we cannot do this alone. But it is absolutely not up to Adeline to make things accessible to her. And you'll read more about it in the book. What can I say about me? I am an advocate, an author, a podcast host. I am a 3-time award-winning podcast host. I host a podcast called The Politics of Disability, because disability is political.
Well, and one of the things that we oftentimes will advocate for is for a family to go to their local public library and request that the library bring a certain book into their library. I think Adventurous Adeline is one of those books. So if you're looking for a place to start, I would just say go down with your kids to the public library and ask them to bring Adventurous Adeline into their shelves. That would be a great place to start. And then don't stop there. Continue to work to try to help make our country and our world more accessible for all of our brothers and sisters.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We are wanting to get Adeline on as many shelves as possible, local bookstores, and also your school library as well.
Yep.
And this is a great teaching tool, and it doesn't stop with the back to school party. There's more. This is a series. We have another book coming out next year, and all I can say is it will be out of this world.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Adventurous Adeline and the Back to School Party. Our guest has been Mary Fashik. Mary, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope that it inspired you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. I hope it inspired you to subscribe to the show. Wherever you find your podcast, we love the iHeartRadio app and Spotify, of course, Apple Podcasts. You can also, of course, listen to us on the AM/FM 24/7 radio network. If you do listen to us on the network, please let your local station manager know that you love the show, and please consider leaving we'd love for you to leave a 5-star review on whatever podcasting app you may be listening to us on. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Want to start by thanking our guest, Dagmara Sitek. Please be sure to check out her Courage Tale series. And we also want to thank Mary Fashik. Please be sure to check out the Adventurous Adeline and the Back to School Party. I want to thank my incredible team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, brand new intern, Ray Ling Tang. I also want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.